Welcome to Reselling Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 315.
Yeah, 315. And this is exciting because we're doing an update episode. And I might be a little bit distracted.
Are we doing an update episode?
Oh, no, never mind. We're not doing an update episode.
You are distracted.
I'm distracted because there's a baseball game playing in the corner over here.
Hey, we weren't going to say anything.
Oh, you weren't going to say anything?
No, I was just going to let it play while we recorded.
All right. So, we're committed to the podcast here, but I guess there's some big baseball game happening.
Only the Padres in the National League Championship since 1998.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. I don't really follow baseball.
No one with the record that the Padres had has made it this far since 1906.
So I guess the Bellow for people out there, which I'm sure most people know this already, but Padres stuff is probably selling a little bit higher than it has in the past. Which,
I've been selling like crazy,
which is nuts because we have easy access to Padres stuff here in San Diego, but there's never been like a huge demand for Padre anything.
Remember a month ago? Remember my GI Joe? Remember that story? That was the estate sale where instead of getting the GI Joe, I ended up picking up a bunch of Padre stuff. And look at the timing.
Wow, that's good timing,
right? I'm probably gonna do better than the GI Joe guy. At least that's the way I'm gonna see it.
Yeah. So it worked out providentially for you that the maybe that's why the Padres have made it this far. Is
just for me,
just for you, because you missed the GI Joe
stuff.
That's your GI Joe, and you lost it. So it's gonna come back one way or another. So okay, we're not doing an update episode. But I'm going to update you on what we are doing, which is we are doing how eBay has changed since 2017. So
and the reason I say 2017 is that was the start of the podcast.
Yeah, man, that was a long time ago.
That was 5 years.
Like that's pretty crazy to think that we've been doing that for this long.
Or unless my years are off. But at least 4.
Yeah, 18, 19, 20, 19. Yeah, it's something around there, like 4 to 5 years. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Like so now, the way we wanted to set this up was we don't want to just talk about how eBay changed. Everybody can talk about how eBay changed, but we want to talk about how to use it to your advantage to gain more sales, to continue selling on eBay. Because let's be real, eBay is something you need to adapt to. You can't do the same thing you were doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You have to always adapt, and it's painful, and I hate it. Anytime there's like a change that I don't favor, I automatically go like, do I really want to go through all this?
Yeah, there's definitely been some changes that are really rough and definitely
and a lot of good ones.
Yeah, and good ones too. But one of the things that we got to realize is the world just doesn't stay static. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, like the ability to adapt and to recognize that things change. But it amazes me how many people don't see it, right? And one of the reasons why you almost have this weird disconnect, sometimes even like generationally with people, is that there are people who have done something a certain way. They have good advice, they have good experiences, but their experiences and their advice might work for a time or a system that's no longer kind of functioning. And it's hard to recognize that sometimes things change. Like I even think about that with me with video. So I used to teach video production at the high school level. It's not like super high level video production stuff. But I think like technology changes so quickly that if I were to take that class on again today, and it's only been, 4 years since I've taught that class. If I were to take that class on again today and start teaching it with the same like strategies and tools that I used 4 years ago, it would be ancient. Like the things the kids are doing are different than I was doing then. So technology,
anytime like the teaching using overhead slides.
Yeah, right. I'm like, all right, today we're going to be using PowerPoint. If you guys don't know, nobody uses PowerPoint anymore. Everybody uses Google Slides. Oh yeah,
Oh man,
please don't tell me you're using PowerPoint.
No, yeah,
goodness. All right, so we're gonna get or like when you meet some people,
but it's not like the old one where it's like the old backlays and then the sound effects and the animation. And
you got the
I don't do any of that
stuff. Yeah, so you can kind of tell. So again, there's nothing wrong. Like I know people who still use their AOL email, right, or their Yahoo email. So you can look at that and say like, hey, they've got a good email address. Everybody knows that email address. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So there's certain times where technology changes, but you can kind of date somebody and say like, if they're still using that, like they were into the internet when at this time frame, that's when they first got into it. So the same thing is true with something like eBay. When you're dealing with technology, the principles of reselling, the principles of economics, those don't change very much. Like those concepts stay the same. But when you're dealing with a technological platform, things change really, really quick. And sometimes you don't even realize it if you're staying up to date and you're consistent with it. But there's probably some people who are trying to resell like it's 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they don't realize why their stores are dropping. So sometimes it's occasionally proper and appropriate to kind of look at how things have changed. Are you adapting with those changes, and kind of anticipate potential future changes to make sure that you're prepared, ready to go, ready to adapt, so that you're not falling behind and becoming a dinosaur, which can happen in just a couple of years in today's
and then you'll
technology.
end up in that, the rabbit hole of negative resellers.
Yeah, it happens.
Anyways, all right. So we decided to break this up into 3. And I don't know why I always come up with this, maybe because I'm a fan of Clint Eastwood movies, but I broke it up into the good, the bad, and the really great, not the ugly. Right? Because we don't want to delve into the ugly. So we'll make the bad part of the ugly, but a lot of good things. And I would say the first one is way more data. Like, I would say 5 years ago, you would never be able to see your impressions. You'd never be able to see your sell-through rate. Terapeak wasn't even on eBay. It was a complete different company. Right now, they did say at one point that they were going to integrate. Remember when they said that they're going to integrate it into the app?
Yeah, man, that would have been great.
And we would have had 365-day comps. That would have been great. Now, maybe it'll happen. And then there's just price suggestions that are on there. Now, I'm not saying you have to follow by those guidelines, but it is really helpful, especially if you're trying to do a fast nickel, trying to get that sell rate going. Use that data to your advantage. Right? The shipping data is very powerful. When it tells you people do free shipping and it's like, whatever percentage, like you probably need to fall in line in that because your stuff is going to take longer to sell than everybody else's. So data is very key. Now, you could also take it to the other side where you're spending all day trying to get your impressions up, trying to get your sales conversions up and all that. So you got to be careful, but definitely use that data to see, am I still sourcing items that I should be sourcing? Am I selling at the right price? All that information now is in Seller Hub. It's also in your listing when you're listing. So I'm grateful that eBay has that information because I think it allows you to better adapt. You're not just looking at comps and listing things, out going, oh, well, this is what it sold for. Hopefully it'll sell.
Yeah, it is very useful to have more data, and you can get to a point where you've got data paralysis where there's so much data and you don't know what to do with it. So there's a fine line between being stuck in analyzing data and not actually doing anything useful with it versus knowing what to do with the data, making sure that you are using it to your advantage. And I always suggest spend a little bit of time getting familiar with it. If you're only used to tracking the cost of item that you purchase and then the cost of the sell and then maybe subtracting shipping, but like maybe those are like the 3 numbers you're looking at. How much did it cost? How much did it sell for? What was the shipping fees and the eBay fees? I mean, that's basic data. Like that's essentially what you need. However, there's more information you can look at. So you can really start to look into what are the fees in different categories, all of the different things you can look into. And it's useful and probably a good idea to spend a little bit of time figuring out which of those data points you can add to the spreadsheet you're keeping, to the bookkeeping you're already doing, so that you can keep track. But I think Orlando's right that you don't want to get too focused in on it. I like to look at things like this where one data point is not enough information. So if you're looking at, hey, today I did this much, my sell-through rate was this much, that's less than yesterday, I need to change everything about my business. There's not enough information there for you to make those kinds of big decisions. What you want to be looking at are trend lines over a period of time with lots of data points. So if you've got, a month worth of data points and you've sold 400 pairs of, clothing items, used clothing items at different times, different shipping amounts, now all of a sudden you've got some useful data that you can use for figuring stuff out. So it's like people who, are dieting or something and they weigh themselves every hour like that. You're never going to be able to figure out, like, did you make the right choice today based off of, well, I weigh a little bit more this morning than I did last night. Okay, that you need to look at it over a period of time. How are you doing over the week? How are you doing over the month? Right. So look at the data, but the only way you're going to actually have that information to look at is if you're taking advantage of those resources that are there for you. So they've added more points that you can look at and it's easier to find them. So make sure you're actually using them.
Yeah. Now the next one I really do like, and it's the expansion of international shipping. So when Mike and I started the podcast, it was global shipping. Right now, you could have sold outside of global shipping. Mike and I never wanted to do that. And the reason being is the seller protection. The seller protection was great. Once you got to Kentucky, that's it. Now, the problem was that if you had people from Canada or you had people, let's say, from other regions that were nearby, it was really expensive. Right. And so generally, a lot of people that would have bought internationally from you were turned off by the high upfront import and custom fees. And so then eBay introduced a standard international delivery. And that meant that you would sell something, and yes, you would still ship it. It wouldn't be Kentucky. For us in the West Coast, it's Redondo Beach. But what would happen is those customs and those import fees, they would be told that they can pay for them when they go pick up the item. Right. So it expanded more areas. I would say one of the areas that I adapted to was Canada, where I had so many Canadian buyers, and a lot of you that are in Canada listen to us, that, especially Harley shirts. So Harley shirts, I always had global shipping, and it would be obscene amounts of money they would be paying, not only because Canadian postage is a crazy dollar to ship anything out there, but on top of that, the import and the custom fees, even though they might be, let's say, just like in Windsor, which is like right across from Detroit, right? And so there'd be a huge expense to do global shipping, right? And so now with international standard delivery, you're able to do a lot more. And then on top of that, eBay began to integrate with Pirate Ship. And then you had Simple Export. Have you used Simple Export yet?
I haven't.
So Simple Export is like the global shipping program, but it's Pirate Ship. And if I remember right, it allows you to ship that to other countries that the global shipping or into eBay international delivery doesn't. But Pirate Ship has like its own insurance, has its own like logistics, and same idea. You ship it to where they want you to ship it, and they'll take care of the rest. So, to me, I don't know that maybe that's under the really great, but the problem with is, I will say, do you find that GSP, that the protection isn't there like it used to be?
I've noticed more people complaining about that. I still haven't had issues with GSP. Most of the things I ship through GSP arrive just fine, and the handful that I have that have arrived broken or something, because a lot of times it's a collectible item, because it's often expensive items that are going GSP, and it makes sense because it means people don't care about the shipping price as much if they're willing to pay a ton of money for an item. So sometimes these are collectible items or breakable items, and they're going across boats and planes and all kinds of craziness. And so
I don't know if they're going across boats.
Who knows?
How long is the shipping on a boat?
It might, a month. Depending on where it's going, it could end up on a bicycle. Who knows? A horse. So there's definitely a chance that these items are going to see a lot of wear and tear and rumble and tumble. And so I've had a couple where it's like, this box was soaking wet and then ripped apart, and then this looks like it was stepped on by a horse, and various things. So, and eBay has always covered it. I've never had an issue with that, but I have seen other people complain about it. So,
okay,
take that for what it's worth.
And so I do think it's not like it used to be before. I remember it didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter. I mean, probably a lot of people took advantage of it. Like they probably just, I could see some scammers just sending junk in the box and just shipping it over, or at least saying something that was new and it wasn't new, and they just shipped it, and they're like, global shipping is protected. Right. And so a lot of that went away, because I've had some instances, for example, this last month, I had somebody, it was weird. I sold a pair of cowboy boots that was dented in the front. Like it was a square toe and it was dented. And then they said, oh, I knew it was dented, but then there was another dent in the back and it was covered by the strap of the boot. And I'm like, what? And so they were asking for a refund. And I do not offer refunds on international shipping. But if it's an INAD, they can ask for a money back guarantee, which that wasn't the case if I remember from early days of global shipping. So you got to take the good and the bad. The good is way more buyers out there available to you. I find my highest sales are usually international buyers. But the bad has been, hey, the seller protections aren't like they used to be. But we'll talk later about how seller protections actually have improved. I think they've improved on eBay. And maybe it's just my experience. I always get leery talking about that, but I just want to share some of our experience. Now, what about defects? Have you had to handle any defects lately?
What do you mean by defects?
Like defects, whether it be negative feedback, whether it be an INAD, whether it be late shipping.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that have definitely gotten easier, part of that is you've mentioned already this idea of seller protections. And I feel like eBay has done a pretty good job of trying to include as much of that as possible. And some of it's just simple features, right? Features such as requesting that a buyer remove that negative feedback.
Yeah, that never was there. There's I think you could do 5 a year, or maybe it's different for everyone. But if you go to your feedback stuff, you can actually click on there and ask them to revise it. That was never there.
Yeah. So, just simple things like that, being able to easily try and fix the problem without having to make a big giant issue out of it. So there have definitely been things that have gotten easier with that. And even just, maybe this is just personal anecdotal experience, but even calling eBay, I don't know. I didn't have many problems when I first started 2017, but it seems like they've gotten, their system is a little bit better as far as, hey, if you're offering returns, if you're in a good, your top rated seller, all of these things, it's faster for them to take care of those things, right? They're more likely to remove those defects, to count towards your side, as opposed to before. eBay might side with you, but who knows, right? It just depends on the person you get and the story you have to end up telling, and then what they feel about it. Whereas now I feel like if it's pretty clear in their policies, hey, you're a top rated seller, you're offering returns, it looks like you tried to do what you could. Okay, we're going to remove this defect.
Yeah. And there's even ways that you don't even have to talk to anybody. For example, maybe it was around, but eBay for Business on Facebook, right? You could message them now. That's one way. The other one I really do like is the eBay Seller Help. So I really don't know why. Maybe it's on Seller Hub. The only way I find it is I Google eBay Seller Help, and then I go to request assistance after I click on that. And it's really easy. You just go on there and you go request to remove defect, request to remove negative feedback, request for whatever it is, case defect. And you don't have to talk to anybody. You click on it. You type in your rationale. If it fits under the parameters that they established, within 48 hours, they get it removed. And that was never around. I mean, I'll never forget my one negative. It wasn't like negative. There was a time where eBay was like, I forget what it was, but like if you got like a certain number of things, like it ended up demoting you on like the eBay search. It was weird. I've shared the story where it was like, I shipped out a short sleeve shirt. I put that it was short sleeve, and the person, oh no, I didn't put that it was short sleeve. The picture showed short sleeve. The guy thought he was getting a long sleeve, and he gave me a defect. And I couldn't. There was no way to argue. There was no website to go to. There really wasn't anybody I could message. And that was probably like a year or two before the podcast. So definitely take advantage of that. Maybe some of you don't know about the eBay Seller Help, but it is a great tool. I've always said this, and I've shared this in Discord a lot, is try to minimize your contacts with eBay. And I think we've talked about this a lot lately, but do everything you can through their systems. So when you do call, it actually means something. And if they're ever tracking that, it doesn't look like you're always trying to call, All right, hey, before we move on to the bad here, if you haven't yet gone to Whatnot and sourced, I just did an auction a couple hours ago, sold a bunch of hats, and it was funny because somebody was like, my prices have been low, but I've been finding a lot of good stuff. And so to me, and then another person said, I'm selling really well in collectibles. So Whatnot is kind of this place where either you're going to do really well in collectibles or you're going to do really great at sourcing. But here's the deal. You can get a free $15 by going to our affiliate link below and just signing up. If you're brand new to Whatnot, you get a free $15. So for example, today I was auctioning off hats for $1. Pretty sure somebody bought like 3 or 4 hats for like $2 to $3 each, and the shipping was covered, and they pretty much got those 3 or 4 hats, and it's going to just be basically free money, and their cost of goods when they list it on eBay and they sell it is going to be 0. So you're going to make good profit.
Yeah, track those metrics. So it's pretty nice.
So there you go. So go to our link below and sign up for Whatnot. All right, the bad. How much do you love item specifics?
You know what? If I had to like rate 1 to 10 how much I love item specifics, it's like a -3. It's not fun. Now, I'll be honest, like when I first started eBay, it made sense, right? There's certain item specifics you have to put in, but it's like they all kind of seemed optional. So I put in the ones that made the most sense for the items I were selling. And I think we've seen it. We've all talked about the craziness of like what became optional versus what became recommended versus what became required. And luckily we have ways, we've made videos about ways of like quickly inputting certain item specifics. The hard part is you can say, all right. And I think they push a little bit harder the idea that people, when they're looking up a certain brand or certain whatever, are going to put in all of those item specifics. And I'm sure there are people who do. I think it's less of people searching with those item specifics for everything, as opposed to there's certain categories, certain types of items where they do that for. And eBay's algorithm, though, punishes you for not having those item specifics in.
Mm-hmm.
So even if adding all of those item specifics perfectly in your item descriptions would bring 1%, 3%. I don't know. I'm throwing random numbers out there, but some low number percentage of more buyers to your item. All right, that's something. That's not nothing. However, eBay will punish you for not having those by maybe reducing the visibility of the item by 40, 50%, or I don't know, again, just throwing random numbers out there. But the benefit you're getting is actually less about the actual benefit of more buyers versus the benefit of not being punished in the algorithm. Mm-hmm. So really that's the win for us. The win for us is not being punished in the algorithm. Well, before they started punishing us in the algorithm, I wasn't being punished by the algorithm, so I didn't need those item specifics. Yep. So it's one of those things where I get it. It's important for eBay. It's probably useful for them because we talked about at the beginning of the episode, data, right? Like I think part of it is they get a few more sales. A big part of it though is just having that information. Like information is power. That's what made Amazon what it is they just literally have so much information on customers, what types of items do well, when those items do well, do certain colors do better at certain times of the month. Like they have everything you could possibly think of. So they know what to push, what to promote, what to not promote. They have all of that information. And so eBay, I think, is trying to do the same thing. And the bummer is we are punished in a sense, but I guess we have to consider the fact that if it actually does help eBay, if having all this information allows eBay to be more successful as a business, then in the long run, it does help us. Downstream, if eBay succeeds, eBay sellers will
be hired by their PR team.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic about it. Like, because I can be negative. I can say it sucks, and I could also be almost ridiculously optimistic and say my sales have improved 100% because I added the fact that it was blue with checkered instead of just having that in my title. I added that in my description, and now my sale. Like, I don't think that's true, but if it helps eBay, then maybe down the road it helps me. So I guess it's a win. I'm going to try and be realistic there.
Okay. Now the practical part right here is. And I shared this, I think, in our last update, but make sure if a word is in your title, that word should be in your item specifics, right? So if you're putting a color in your title, it should be in your item specifics. If you're using some kind of keyword that's related to your item, it should be in your item specifics, the size, item specifics. Any word that is in your title needs to be your item specifics. That's what they said.
But if people were using item specifics, then you wouldn't need those words in the title.
I know, but I'm just repeating what eBay said. Okay, that's what they said. All right. Now, this one came from something that was really great, but now it's a problem we're all dealing with. And I don't know, maybe today we're not. I got to tell you, today has been weird. I have had 0 of these. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe today's the day that there's no more unpaid items.
No more ever. Yeah, ever. Right. Okay. There's always going to be unpaid items.
But before, so unpaid items, I strongly want to say that it wasn't that big of a deal a few years ago, because even if you offered best offer on everything, you didn't feel it as much. But once eBay introduced, and we'll talk about this later on in the podcast, send offer, it just escalated the unpaid items. Because before, you'd have somebody that would offer and you would accept it. And then you're kind of like, all right, maybe they didn't see it. It's going to be a little bit for them to eventually pay. But when you send an offer and somebody accepts it and they don't pay, it's super frustrating. Because obviously, if you accepted it, you could have just spent the next 2 seconds and paid for it. And I mean 2 seconds, not any more than that. Okay. And so that's where I think the frustration is that, and we always have had this frustration, but it just escalated because, see, when we accept offers, we can auto accept. A buyer doesn't auto accept a send offer. They literally have to hit accept offer, and then they have the option to pay, and then they don't.
Yeah, I think the difference. So we got to consider that the buyer has 2 sides of this. If they send the offer versus if they receive the offer. I think that if they're receiving the offer, that should be an easy fix on the eBay side, where when they press accept, they have to pay in order for the accept to go through.
And it's not.
Right. However, the other side, I have people always, not attack me. They point out that I'm wrong. So I get it. I'm not trying to defend the fact that buyers don't have to pay. However, I understand that there are also some people who are like, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. Like I found this one t-shirt that I like and 6 different sellers have it and they're all selling it for $60 ish each, but I'm going to like send $35 offers on them. Well, I could send to one and wait the 24 hours, or I'm just going to send to all 6. None of them accept, 2 of them accept. Okay. Now I've got to pick which one. So I get that happens. So it's different when you submit the offer. I know there's some programs where if you submit an offer, the money's tied up essentially, like you've already paid for it in that sense too. But it makes a little bit more sense for me that there's unpaid items there versus if somebody accepts an offer that you send, that should be automatic paid.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So that's the bad. All right. Now, this one I think is a major problem. And the reason I say that is in eBay's latest earnings reports, they made more money off of fees than they made off of gross merchandise sales. Right. And so right now, if you've been selling eBay forever, and I know a lot of people in the Discord, we have discussion all the time, is if people are saying, hey, you don't need to use promoted listings, right? You could, if you have something that's unique or something that's high in demand, like you don't have to put promoted listings, but I don't think that's true. I think, and I could be wrong, but to me, it seems that eBay is saying, hey, this is how we make our revenue. And we want people to do this because it's giving us greater revenue. And so we're going to put people higher into search that promote their listings.
It's all going to be contingent upon what field you're selling in, how much competition. So I definitely understand if I'm selling like unique artwork, and there's like only one of these, right? And it's a certain type of, and somebody's looking for that. Or if I'm selling something and there's really like maybe 1 listing, 2 listings on eBay, promoted listings probably not as important. Now, if you're selling like we are, where, hey, I'm selling a certain type of shoes. Well, there's a lot of Merles, size 11, black, and a certain model on eBay used. Okay, so now my competition is much bigger. So then it makes sense that promoted listing is going to play a huge factor in that. So it's really going to depend. I'll never forget. I'm pretty sure it was Auction Professor, but when not Auction Professor, it was Craigslist Hunter. We had Craigslist Hunter on an interview, and we were talking to him about a friend of his who that's what he does. Like he only sells high-end items, right? And it's only a couple items per month that he's selling at all. So like he's willing to fly places to source this item. And it's only, if that's the type of thing you're doing, promoted listing is probably not as important, right? Where if you're doing what we're doing, so it's hard. We can't just say like a general, no matter what, you have to do promoted listings. But I would say most people who are doing the type of selling that we're doing, which is probably many of our listeners, you're going to have to do promoted listing.
Yeah. And remember, and 2% is the base. Right. And so it's an interesting thing. Luckily, we're not getting pushed towards pay-per-click. That's a whole nother world. But that's one of the main changes. And again, it goes along with the algorithm. I mean, promoted listings did not exist when we started this podcast. Right. Wait,
regular promoted listings did?
No.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh. There was no such thing as promoted listings. Because I'll never forget it. So it happened around the same time as Good Till Canceled ended up ending.
All right.
Because there used to be a time when eBay had, and that's not one of the things we're talking about here, but where it used to be Good Till Canceled was forever. So once you listed it, it never would cycle through. It never would do the 30 days. Where once it started doing the 30 days, that's when the promoted listings happen, because your items, if they keep cycling through that 30 days, keeps getting pushed lower in the search. And at eBay Open, I'd asked, well, if you do promoted listings, does it keep it higher? And they said yes. So
according to this, it was 2015.
Oh, 2015. Okay.
But it may not have been as widespread as, but I mean, it definitely has changed and become more prevalent.
Wow, 2015.
Yeah, I mean that's when it says it was introduced. But again, like there's a lot of
introduced.
Well, there's a lot of things that have been introduced that like are a slow rollout, right? So it may have been like only certain categories, certain sellers were doing it, but yeah, now it's very ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
You have no options. Yeah. Like you have no options. All right, hey, we mentioned this a lot, but our Discord has been phenomenal. Keep growing. Keep getting quality people there. I'm learning every single day that I get on there. I'm also enjoying the conversation. All right. We just had a conversation back and forth about, when is scalping okay? When is it not? And just a good conversation. And again, I don't ever see it going down the rabbit hole of negativity. Right. Or Mike and I at least make sure it doesn't go there. But
yeah, one of the things, I mean, like just just thinking differently, because sometimes you get locked in your own way of reselling. And just recently there was a conversation even with somebody saying, hey, you know, when you live out in a rural area, you have to think about shipping differently.
Yeah, I caught that I never even thought about the things they were talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, we've thought about like the fact that like if you're shipping something to a rural area, like, okay, the prices are a little bit higher out there. But yeah, I mean, you have to consider a lot of factors when you're reselling. So if you live somewhere, maybe you have access to cheaper items to source at stores, but then you also have to drive 40 miles or something crazy to get to a UPS store, or they charge you a higher. So there's a lot of things that, you know, just seeing people's how they resell, it lets you think differently and consider what you're doing. And so it is just really cool to be around a group of people who are doing the same thing you're doing, but doing it differently. And so I think we all grow and get enriched by that type of conversation and looking at that. So it was cool. And I definitely love our Discord. And one of the cool things is we have a lot of people who support us, and they probably don't even use the Discord. They just support us because they appreciate what we do, you know, making these podcasts. Honestly, you know, we're paying for servers, we're paying for equipment, we're paying for a lot of things to do this. I mean, the software that I use to edit the podcast, you know, it's like $60 a month. Like there's a lot of things that we're paying for to make this podcast happen, and on top of our time. And so there's a lot of people who just say, you know what, PRS Podcast has either helped me make some money through some bolos, or it's been funny, or it's, you know, gives me something to do. And so content like this comes because of people like you who are willing to support it. So we thank you for supporting us. There would be no PRS Podcast if it wasn't for people, you know, being grateful enough to give us a little bit of a kickback. So
yeah. And so if you'd love to support us and then have access to the Discord as a thank you for supporting us, jumping over to patreon.com/PRS Podcast, or go to the link below, and love to see you there. If you want to follow us on social media, we are PRS Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We are PRS Cast on Twitter. You could always give us a call, 619-73-1170. That's 619-73-1170. We're almost there, Mike. We're almost there. Mike just can't wait. You could also leave us a Gmail. Leave us a Gmail.
Mike, talk about technologically
by emailing us at purespodcast@gmail.com.
You can Gmail me.
There you go. At purespodcast@gmail.com. I've seen these TikToks where guys, instead of asking for numbers, they ask girls for their Gmails.
You mean like their Snapchat?
No, their emails. No, their email address.
Is it like a funny, like a prank thing?
Yeah. I thought it was pretty funny.
Okay.
Anyways, side note. Also,
we watch different TikToks. That's
no. Every once in a while, you know, you get something random in the feed. Where am I? Oh, hey, by the way, thank you to all of you that have dropped reviews on Apple iTunes for us, and it helps us out in the algorithm. We're approaching, I think, 700 here soon. So if you haven't had a chance yet, jump on over. Click that 5 stars. Let people know why you love PRS Podcast. Appreciate every single one of you, and just grateful for all the support, whether it be on Patreon, whether it be just sending out reviews on Apple iTunes, or just following us on social media. Thank you to all of you. Yeah. All right, we got some good ones here. You ready?
I'm ready. Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah. All right, hustle of the week. So our first one comes from Caitlin. IG handle at joyful.vintage. So showed up at an estate sale hours early. Nice. To pick up a certain vase she previously learned about online. Ended up picking up the vase for $35. Listed on eBay and sold a few days later. It was an L.E. Smith nubby butt swung vase. Sold for $800 plus free shipping. Holy smoke. Shipping was $80, but luckily it arrived safely. I mean, it's okay to be spending that kind of amount on shipping when you're making $800.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
I'm seeing like a lot of, and think about
nubby butt. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Now I've seen them. And so they're pretty obvious, like when you spot it out, but yeah, I got to tell you that, Caitlin, that's great work. I got to tell you, I'd be kind of scared of floating that box. Yeah. $800, man. $800. All right. Hey, this is from Jared. IG handled Jared Volt. Went to a garage sale and bought a camera for $10. The lady selling it stated her daughter bought it, but it didn't work. Looked up comps and decided it was a buy. Went home to part it. Sold a Maya, Maiya 645 camera with a Secor C 80 millimeter f1.9 Japanese lens. Am I
f1.9? That's the
mount,
the f-stop. No, that's how wide the aperture is. Okay, so this is just a quick tip. I'm just gonna throw that out there. If you see that number on a this is, I don't know why I've never mentioned this before, but when it comes to lenses, there's usually an F number, F something. The lower that number is, the more valuable that lens is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a 1.9, usually it's 1.8. Like that's a more common number. So maybe this is an older type camera. But yeah, 1.8, 1.4, 1.2. If you're seeing lenses at that level, these are typically very valuable lenses.
All right. So that's what sold the camera, he told me. And so he sold that camera, which wasn't working with the lens, for $499.99 plus ship.
Love it.
$10 to almost $500. And if Jared just wanted to share his store name, and it's a quality_Midwest_ merchandise. So if you want to go maybe score some camera parts, head on over.
Go check out that sweet sale. That's sweet. All right. Our next one comes from K-Kite. This is somebody on our Discord.
Yes.
And came across 32 sets of vintage playing cards sealed at $50 a piece.
50 cents.
Yeah, that's what I meant. 50 cents a piece. 50 cent. 50 cent a piece at the thrift. Listed on eBay and sold 3 of them to a collector. So the 3 that were sold was 2012 bicycle playing cards, 2012 air cushion finish for $164.97. Man, I tell you what, there is definitely a market for like high quality poker cards or playing cards. Yeah. Bicycle obviously is a big name brand. Air cushion is something you should be looking for. And when you're looking at vintage or older ones, like there's definitely collectors. I mean, I'm amazed if you just go to like a Target or a Walmart or a Ralph's, like it almost doesn't matter. And you see bicycle playing cards, they're often selling for $10 to $15 for a deck of cards.
Really? It's been a long time.
Yeah. I mean, what used to be like, you'd pay like a couple bucks for a deck of playing cards. If they're bicycle cards and they're like nice, now they have them. So yeah, if you're getting some older ones, man, that's a killer deal. Just to be able to sell 3 of them for $164. You got 32 total.
Yeah, that's a killer.
Not bad at all.
And so, yeah, thank you, Caitlin, Jared, and KK. Always love the Hustle of the Week. By the way, you can use that hashtag Hustle of the Week on Instagram and, let us know. Mike wants us to be tagged too. You know who's on there? I can't even see that person's name, but the top G who's been banned from social media, it has taken over Hustle of the Week.
See, and that's what I'm saying, man. Like from the beginning, that was our community.
Like I had to keep scrolling, and I'm like, top G. I'm like, why?
I don't know who that is.
No. Anyways, it'll those of you that know. All right. What was your Hustle of the Week?
So my Hustle of the Week is one that's currently ongoing. So we'll see how this plays out. This might end up being a story during the next update episode. But coworker of mine who knows I resell messaged me the other day and said, "Hey, my son has outgrown pretty much all of his like toys at this like level. You know how that you get to like levels, and so so he's outgrown all of his Imaginext and like Hasbro like superhero toys. So we're talking totes and totes and totes and totes of toys. And a lot of them, I mean, they're not vintage. And that's what I told him. I said, look, I normally, if I'm selling toys, it's going to be vintage toys. My son might be interested in some of these and some of them might be worthwhile. So just let me know. And so right now we're kind of going back and forth. I don't know. He's sending me more and more pictures. Some of them are obviously valuable. I mean, Imaginext is there's some pretty valuable pieces there, especially if there's like collectible ones that people are after. Sometimes it's the little figures that are valuable. Sometimes it's like the big sets, almost like the Playhouse type things. So I'm trying to kind of figure out what's worth, but of course, doing the negotiation that we want to do, what's the all-in price, right? So it's almost like a shock when people hear that. They're like, wait, because they're like, well, we're thinking like $1 for this type of toy and then $2 for this type of toy. I'm like, no. Let's just do how much for everything, right? And so I'm waiting to get the total price on that. I think this is going to work out in my favor where, and he knows I resell, and I'm going to be honest with him. If there's nothing in there, I'm not going to buy it. But it looks like from what I'm gathering, there's definitely some potential there. So it's a hustle of the week, because this is one of those things where just letting people know around you that you're a reseller can pay off, right? Because how many times do people just throw things away when they don't know where else to do with it, or they just donate it? And in fact, he said, and this is one of those things where, and it's not like, because I asked, like, what are you planning on doing with this stuff? Like, because he's like, well, we're taking pictures of it all right now. I'm like, but are you going to like offer up all these things like Facebook Market? Like it's a lot of work. Like if
Mike's
you're going
just working the deal.
well, a little bit, but at the same time, like I think a lot of people think like, you know, it's work, right? Like reselling things. Like if you're going to try and resell and sell individual, basically like dolls, as it were, you know, like I don't know what they're called, but like the 12 or 18 inch, like Spider-Man, hard Hasbro, you know, figures. I don't know what the term is for those, but if you're going to sell each one of those for $1 or $2 a piece, it's a lot of work as opposed to like, let's just do the all in thing. And so I asked him like, what's your plan with all this? And I guess there's a store here, like a resale store that will take like old kid toys and they'll give you like store credit.
Like 25% of the retail.
Right. And so that's where I'm thinking like, okay, I just got to come in at above that and I'll be all right. So I know I'll at least be able to get a good deal because I know they're not going to offer. I don't think
they're offering 25% of retail for toys though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
so
strollers and stuff like that. It's like one of those baby resales.
Baby resale. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how it's going to go. It's not a complete hustle of the week yet, but it's one of those things where building this relationship and being honest with somebody for a period of time and just talking about the things you do just ends up paying off. And I've had this happen various times in my reselling career. And this is just another one of those examples. So
yeah. All right.
What about you?
So mine's a hustle of the week, but it's kind of a fail hustle of the week too. So I went to a garage sale. I mentioned this. I think I shared the sealed Walkman I had sold. But anyways, long story short, I went to a garage sale. And it was an interesting one because the garage sale was put on by another reseller who I compete with when we're outsourcing at garage sales. And you probably know who this is, but it's it's that little old lady. You never seen her? She buys a bunch of kids' clothes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know.
And I guess she must not sell on eBay or something. I wonder if she listens to the podcast. Probably not.
If you're a pure hustler, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. But I don't think she does because she threw this huge garage sale and it was incredible because everything there was stuff I would have listed on eBay, but at a garage sale altogether. Now, there was a bunch of stuff I probably wouldn't, but there's a lot of good stuff. And so there was these set of pans there and I've never picked up Griswold. And there was a set of Griswold pans there and I was like, no way, at a garage sale. And yeah, she charged up and I paid $25, but these were vintage Griswold pans. So I paid $25 and it was a baster, like the thing that you put on top. And I forget the number of the pan. I'll look it up while I'm talking. But the interesting thing about it was, now I'm entering a whole new niche, right? I'm trying to figure out how much to price it for. And prices for this Griswold were all over the place. Some people had sold it for 100. Some people had sold it for 400. Some people had sold it separately at different prices. And so I kind of was just shooting in the air like what it was worth. And I thought, I'm selling 2 pieces. I guess I should sell it for a good number. So I put it up for $500. And then I used a video, and I think I mentioned this on podcast. People started messaging me like, well, does it spin? Is it warped? And I didn't know what all that meant. So I guess on these Griswold pans, if they spin, that means they're warped, because if they weren't warped, they would stay
lay
still, lay flat, right? Because they would ask me, are you able to slide a credit card under it? Like I had all these kinds of questions. So I did the video, and within 24 hours, I got an offer of $275, and I only paid $25. And I was like, no, it's too soon. And then, they countered again. They're like, hey, listen, there's some work that needs to be done to these pans. I refurbish. I don't know what the word was for it. And I was like, no, I got it up for 500. And I said, I could take maybe 350. And then I didn't hear from them again. A week later, same offer, 275. And I'm like, no, I can't, And so I waited. And now we're like in month 3. Crickets. Nobody. And somebody offered me $200. And I was like, you know what? If it was that hot of an item, I probably would have sold it by now. Right. I mean, we could all say, yeah, you got to wait for the right buyer. But I think that right buyer was the first person. Yep. And so when this person offered me 200, I didn't even counter offer. I was like, I'll take it. So it was a hustle a week, turned Griswold pan from $25 to $200 plus ship. But it was also a loss because I probably could at least sold it for $75 more. But lesson learned. I learned a lot about Griswold. It was worth it. So keep an eye for Griswold, but I can't beat $25 to $200. So
that's good.
That is my hustle of the week.
Yeah.
All right. Have you been in need of bubble wrap lately, Mike?
Oh yeah, and I'm always in bubble wrap. I'm bubble wrapping stuff I'm shipping, and
Are you?
I do
Okay.
sometimes, and also my in-laws have finished, packing up all of their stuff and are moving as well. So they had some of our pictures, and we didn't realize they had some of our pictures under their bed. And I'm talking like, I forgot when I first got married to my wife, she had these like really big, nice, like professionally framed pictures, and I forgot about these things. And so we had to bubble wrap the heck out of them. And I'll tell you what, I'm very glad I had my American Bubble Boy, because otherwise, if I was like, man, I've got to go drive somewhere and buy bubble wrap and spend a bunch of money, I probably would have been like miserable the whole time. But I was just like, sure, let me go to the eBay shed and grab this inexpensive, high quality bubble wrap that I get sent to my door within a couple of days. And it worked out. It worked out real well.
There you go. So go to the link below, American Bubble Boy, get that awesome bubble wrap, free same day shipping, next day shipping, depending where you're located, and local pickup. Help make sure that you have everything you need for Q4. Go to the AmericanBubbleBoy.com link below and help us out too. So, all right, let's talk about the really great.
Real great.
Do you agree with the first one I put there?
I do. Sending offers, man. Man, when that first came in, I remember that was like earth shattering. Some of these things, it's hard to like, sometimes like some of these things, you have them for a little bit of time and it just feels like you've always had them. Yeah. But like to remember, like, wait, there was a point in time when we didn't have send offer.
Yeah, you couldn't actively do anything, right? For the most part, you were just waiting for sales to come through.
Yeah, you had no idea really. I mean, you could look and see like, oh, this item has a bunch of views on it. But you didn't know really if people were that interested, because one of the nice things about send offers is it will kind of highlight and allow you to send an offer if it's something somebody's like really, really looking, what do they call it, heavy browsing, right? If they got it in their cart.
If they look at it more than 3 times within 15 minutes, they're heavy browsing.
That's right. And so it just really lets you kind of identify if an item is valuable. It allows you to send out offers like that. And man, I tell you what, once we got send offers, like the immediate number of additional conversions I was getting on sales was just, it was pretty crazy. Like people were saying, I don't think people were using it all the time. They would try it once or twice. Like I sent 2 offers and they didn't get accepted. Like, I don't know if I like this thing, but man, like if you're sending offers all the time, some of those are going to convert.
Right? Yeah, and the key thing is to send it when they're heavy browsing.
Yeah.
Right. Don't wait till the end of the day. Don't wait till tomorrow, because you want to catch them when they're looking at it.
Yeah. When it comes to consumerism, it's like a drug. It's like people aren't thinking rationally when they're like obsessed with an item that they really want in that moment. Don't give them time to think about it. Feed into that irrationality of, I need this item to make me happy. Oh, look, somebody offered me $10 off on this. I need this item. I'm going to buy it. But if you give them time to think about it, I mean, doesn't that sound awful? But it's true. It's the psychology of it. That's
you are connecting a buyer to something they want. There's nothing awful in that.
You're also separating the buyer from money that they may need for something else, but they're wasting on a.
We're all adults.
Thingamajig.
We're all adults.
I look. I get it. I'm saying I totally agree. I do it. However, send offers. It's converted a whole bunch. And yeah, if you're just looking at one-offs, you might send 10 offers and not get anything. But if you're sending 100 offers, couple hundred offers a month, a bunch of those are going to be conversions and sales that you wouldn't have got had there not been send offers. So when you add that up over the course of a year of how many extra sales you got because of send offer, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's been great. I mean, and again, a lot of people send a lot of offers and they do not get conversions. And so it's hit or miss, and everybody has a rule. If it's under $100, I'll take off $5. If it's under $20, I'll take off like $2 or $3. If it's over 100, between 100 to 500, I'll take anywhere from 15 to 35 off, right? It all depends. But, it's nice because you can at least take some control. Like if you really need a sale that day, you can give them a really nice offer and convert that sale and maybe push, your items in the algorithm. So definitely love send offers. The next one is, I love coupons. I was not a big believer. If you caught our podcast, I don't know, somewhere in the 200s when it first got introduced, I was kind of like, I've been sending them out, not been that great. But I gotta say, I changed my mind because it's allowed me to create repeat buyers. I just wish eBay upfront would tell you they're repeat buyers, but I have people that, for example, I have a group of buyers for Department 56. And when I send out that coupon, some of them have told me, hey, I'm going to wait till you get the right Department 56 item. I'm going to use it. Somebody else told me, I remember one time, hey, I bought this, but I could have used my coupon, but instead I want to use it for this item. And so I ended up getting 2 sales out of it. So just remember with coupons, like this is something I think that a lot of people aren't using. I wish eBay would share the data, and maybe they don't need to, but I don't think a lot of people are using some coupons because it's just one extra step. Like you have to go on Seller Hub, you have to go to marketing. Then you have to, if you want to do it en masse, you have to create buyer groups. And so it takes a little work, but I wanted to let everyone know, like, I really believe it's worth it. I send out coupons about every 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a public coupon, which I like. If things are really slow for me, I'll do a public coupon. Like, hey, if you buy in the next 2 days, it's a weekend sale, you get the extra 20% off everything by using this code. And it does convert. It converts to more sales. I think the only thing that's I would say better in getting immediate results is like running, a live auction like on Whatnot or eBay eventually. But the coupons have been really helpful. So strongly encouraging you, especially this Q4.
That's good. And then our last one, which we've already kind of briefly touched on this, but we want to reiterate it, maybe go into a little more detail here, is just seller protections in general. One of the things that we really enjoyed at eBay Open few years ago was the emphasis that they had on trying to provide additional seller protections. And this is really important because the reality is eBay makes its money off of the sellers. So we kind of are the customer. Mm-hmm. However, our customers are the technical customers, so they're the ones that are using the platform. We're the ones that are paying the platform, making the platform money. The customers are the ones. So it's a weird thing because, like the sayings, the customer's always right. You got to please the customer. eBay's got kind of like 2 layers of that. We're their customers, but the customers are our customers, and they're the ones that kind of keep it. So there's this weird balance that has to happen there. And we see that like when they took away the ability to give your customers feedback. They kind of removed that function. Yeah. And a big part of that, and it makes sense, is they want to create an atmosphere where people want to be on eBay, where people don't feel like eBay is a bad platform for them to be on, that they're going to be judged, that they're going to be. And so it makes sense that there's going to be a lot of customer protections. Hey, if you're not happy with an item, you can do an INAD. If you're not, but then to realize that eventually that's going to hurt a bunch of the sellers, that a lot of sellers are going to have false INADs. A lot of sellers sold new shoes, and then those shoes come back when the person says they didn't fit right, and now they've been like significantly used, and now I can't sell these shoes as new, and there's really nothing I can do about it. Like, that's not fair. So eBay recognized, hey, we've got to do something for our other customers, the sellers, and I think they've done a pretty good job. Now, are there times when they could still do more? I mean, sure, if you're the one that kind of got the short end of the stick, you're always going to feel like more could have been done. However, I would say I've noticed that it's inconvenient to have to contact eBay to have something fixed, but it's not impossible. It's one of those things where if you're willing to call, you're willing to explain the situation, you're willing to send the email, you're willing to whatever it is, most likely you're going to have those protections. And it comes down to what we've talked about in previous podcasts. If you've got that reputation and you're meeting the qualifications, I'm a top rated seller, which I became a top rated seller and I didn't feel like it was tons of work, right? Like you just kind of have to,
you have a certain amount of sales,
sell some items, right? Sell some items and not have too many defects. And if you do that, you're gonna be top rated. And if you're not top rated right now, sell some more items, you'll get to top rated. And then offer returns. It doesn't have to be free returns. There's maybe a case to be made that free returns might help you out a little more. I know that there's definitely a lot of people who feel that way, Orlando probably among them. However, just know that you don't need to. If you're kind of like, I want those seller protections, but I don't want to offer free returns, you don't have to. Just offer returns and you're going to get those protections. And you'll be amazed at how many times that works out, because we've talked about all it takes is that one INAD. All it takes is that one negative feedback. And all of a sudden you've had a 20% drop in your sales that month. That could be huge if that's your source of income.
Oh, that was this last month for me.
Oh, yeah.
So it was actually worse than that. Sales now have been picking up, but that was because of, if you listen to previous podcasts, I had 2 items that went to authentication and they got rejected, even though they were legitimate. And I truly believe that's what killed my sales. But now things are back. I haven't listed in like 3 days and I'm having all kinds of sales. So I'm not sure what's going on. Now, the seller protections, it's interesting because I was with many of you. When I first started doing eBay, I was like, there's no way I'll ever do returns. I'll never, especially free returns. You're crazy. 30-day returns? That's crazy. Like 30 days. And so I went through this whole thing. And then once I tried returns the first time, I was like, I can do this. Then I started doing free returns. Then I got to 30-day returns. Now, I've not gotten into the 60-day returns. But if they were to offer some kind of other seller protection, if you did 60-day returns, I'd probably do it. So give you a case in point, I've had many, many times where, for example, I had someone recently, they purchased like a costume for Halloween. And I had said, hey, they had messaged me and they're like, oh, you said that, this costume was gently used, but look at the legs are all torn up. And I didn't get in a debate, but they weren't bad. The pictures even showed everything. I showed all these different angles and they're like, I like a partial refund. And in my head, I'm like, what? Why would I give you a partial refund? Then they said, oh, by the way, I was going to send it to the tailor. And then I said, okay, well, I can't give you a partial refund. Then their language changed to, I did send it to the tailor. And I'm like, what? So I call eBay and I'm like, hey, I want to give this person a partial refund, but I want the item to show up to me. And they said, well, here's the deal. I didn't mention this. This is so important to the story. They gave me a negative feedback. They never even messaged me. They just gave me a negative feedback. So they held that negative feedback over my head for the partial refund. So when I called eBay, they said, well, there's two things. It seems that obviously they're trying to claim an INAD where it's clear that you're clear on this and we could remove the negative feedback, or you could give the partial refund and we'll remove the negative feedback and, we'll get you your money back. And I said, oh, that's interesting. They said, yeah, well, we were able to do this because you offer free returns. So we're able to protect you as a seller because you're accurate in your description. You have great feedback. You try to make things right with the buyer. The buyer doesn't want to send the item back, so we'll remove it for you. And I got to tell you, that conversation 3-4 years ago would have been completely different, right? Where now it's, hey, if you're a top rated seller, if you sell global shipping, if you do international standard delivery, like all those have these protections in place. And I really do believe, and I know a lot of people will disagree. And again, maybe I would be in that place if I didn't have the feedback that I have at this moment. But I do think as long as you are trying to do everything right with the buyer, you're messaging the buyer, you're offering the refund, you're telling them you can ship it back. One of the excuses this individual gave was, well, it would cost me money to print a label. And I was like, nope, I got free shipping. You can just drop it off. And as long as you are trying to do everything in your power to provide the best customer service, I do believe eBay's customer service has vastly improved. And I think part of that is, we've been talking about this a lot, is that eBay is losing market share, right? And they probably if they are making money off of resellers as far as in promoted listings and eBay fees, you also got to recognize they got to do what they can to retain sellers, especially sellers that do this full time, because again, that's part of their revenue, right? And as much as I say that eBay wouldn't care if they got bad PR, I do agree with Mike that I think there's a point that they do. And they want to keep sellers continuing to sell on their platform. The more sellers they have on their platform, the greater the revenue that comes into the company, and they continue to do well. So really look into those seller protections. Do what you can to get those seller protections. It's not the days back in the day where you could do no returns and you're good and eBay's never going to force return. Those days are gone. But on the other side, there's a lot that's opened up to you to be successful in your business.
Yeah.
So hopefully everything here that we discussed, all of these changes, whether it be the good, the bad, or the really great, has helped you out, or even you caught some incredible hustle of the week. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.